So, Papa, tell me how your parents ended up moving to Australia.
Well, they were married in Russia, and they moved to Palestine because of there was a lot of things going on in Russia that they didn't like against the Jewish people, and they went to Israel, to Palestine, because it was the Jewish homeland. And from there they came to Perth in Australia, and that was with all their relations, my mother's relations and dad's relations, and they came to Perth, and they were there, and I was born there. And from there they moved, my parents moved to Adelaide, and we were there for a number of years, and then the Depression started, and the Depression was a horrible time, and my parents worked there, mother in business and father in, he was a cabinet maker, a very good cabinet maker. And during the Depression time, gradually got worse and worse, and they heard about Queensland being the state least affected by the Depression, so they came up here. And the day, that was in 1932, early in 1932, the day we got off the train, we found a taxi driver who was Jewish, and we said to him, can you introduce us to any Jewish families who take an interest in the community? And with my parents, he drove us to Crafty's, who had a furniture shop in the valley. He introduced us to his daughter, Clara, and Clara talking to me, she said, across the road there's a Jewish dance tonight. Would you like to come? So I said yes, I'd like that, and she arranged with me to meet at the corner of Edward Street and Queen Street, and in due course in the evening I was waiting there, and she came off the tram and brought with her Rosie. So you know, as soon as I saw Rosie, I said, well, you know, this is much more interesting than the other girl. So that was the end. We all went into the dance hall, into the club, and danced, but I only spent the whole evening with Rosie, and that we fell in love, and that was it.
After he met me, he wanted a photo of me. So I went to a photographer and got my photo taken and paid the photographer with my pocket money, and I gave it to Bill. Well, he was very happy about it.
Not the pocket money, the photo.
Growing up in Brisbane, it was really wonderful times. In our street, Church Avenue, there was 3 Jewish families. There was the Borshts and Shidskis and the Crafties. We had wonderful times there, and it was really happy days. Yes, it was. Every day we'd go to Sunday school after school, and I always went with Edie. She was my best friend, Edie Borscht, at that time. Edie Trigger now, it was. And the father used to come and pick us up in a sulky, horse and cart. And this horse knew Mr. Bush used to always stop at a hotel, a pub, and this horse knew, and he always used to stop, and Mr. Bush used to get out and have his drink, and off we'd go. We never had bars on our windows, or at night we used to open the doors front and back and go to town and leave our windows open. But today it's just not safe to go out, and you've got to lock your doors and lock your windows. It was a much safer place than it is today.
I played for Maccabi in Adelaide as a youngster, and I was very successful as a schoolboy player in Adelaide. But when I came to Brisbane, I played with South Brisbane, and because I had plenty of time of an afternoon, I'd go down to the nets and I'd bowl up, you know, for practice. And I remember bowling against the different teams that came practicing there, you know, as a bowler. I knew Rose and I were going to be married, so I got a teacher of tailoring to teach me how to cut. And when I had learnt that and we were married, I went into the factory with Mr. Oshinsky and worked as a cutter with him. We wanted to get married earlier, but we found some stiff opposition, and they wanted Rosie to finish her course.
When did you get married?
10th of March 1936. It was a Tuesday evening. The ceremony was in the Margaret Street Synagogue, and Reverend Levine was the rabbi, and he that was the last wedding or function that he performed in Queensland. He went to England, he and his family.
It was a beautiful dress, big roses in the front and pin tucked, and it was really a beautiful dress. My bridesmaids were my sister Annie, and she was 13, and Shaney, and Rachel. She married an American during the war. She was in America, and Violet.
A crowd had gathered around the wedding cars, and we got into our wedding car. We were going to the reception, and in this group of people, a lady came and bounced a baby into the car, and Rosie got such a shock. She thought that they were going to give her the baby to keep, until I placated her by telling her that to touch the baby for good luck.
My father, originally, he was a member of the Deshan Street, and they had an argument, and that's how we went to Margaret Street then. But I used to go to Deshan Street hall. They had a hall next to the shul, and we used to go to all the dances there, and it was great.
It was a small shul. I went there several times, just visiting. A small shul, but and the ladies' area was on the ground floor also, but they had a little sort of just a slightly elevated, but they had a covering to keep separate.
Meeting Bill, that was my most fondest memories.
Mm. And yours, Papa?
Same thing. It was the day in 1932 when we met.
He was my first boy and I was his, was I?
Yes.
This girl.
She had to ask me.